Alright, this I'm gonna go review. I haven't done one in a minute, but I like to review shit, so here we go. This is Stephen King, The Stand. So I've been a little bit on a Stephen King kick recently. This is kind of what started it, but I've just kind of I kind of fell in love with this book and I want to read more of his works. I've always really wanted to tackle The Dark Tower. Um and so I actually haven't even started that yet, but I read this one first, kind of going into this series. Stephen King has always interested me in the sense I've liked his writing, but I don't necessarily like the horror stuff he does. Sometimes I'm into horror. I just don't like his horror. But maybe it'll change my mind. I've actually been interested in his basically non-horror works. I mean, this technically is horror, technically some dark fantasy, whatever you want to call it. But anywho's, The Stand is a plague-based book with tons of prophecy, well-written characters, and a lot of good stuff. So, right out of the way, who would I recommend this for? Anyone who likes apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic stuff. Yes. Everyone likes Stephen King, yes, and anyone who plans on reading the Dark Tower series should read this book absolutely. I'm trying to think. You don't shouldn't necessarily read it first. Doesn't really matter. Like it's like spoil stuff, but like you should read it before you progress too far in the Dark Tower series because it introduces one of the main antagonists. I don't want to spoil anything, so I won't get into that. But people know. I recommend reading this. But my thoughts on this book. So all in all, I think Stephen King does a lot of stuff good. I think he does a lot of stuff. To be honest, I always thought Stephen King was overrated. That's actually why I kind of got into my most would be like, do I actually like him or do I hate on him? So kind of get into the pros, cons, everything. And then also before I kind of continue, because I'm probably reading a lot of Stephen King books, I have heard some stuff. They said something about the Epstein files or something weird. I don't know what it was, but I heard some bad stuff. I'm sure it's true. A lot of celebrities are weird, and even if you read his books, there's weird stuff, and they're like, so it kind of makes sense. So I'm not defending him anyway. I'm not trying to support him. These books I've all had for a long time, well before I knew that stuff. And my read list, as well as the books I bought recently to get into them, have been second, third hand, used bookstore, heavily used, eBay. So I know people are like, don't support bad people. I get that. I try to respect that a lot, but I have not bought anything from him recently, and I will not speak on whatever that is. It's not gonna be the point of my review, but just leaving that out there. I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, it's Stephen King. Okay, so the book is huge. It's 1,150 some pages if you get the uncut version. If you're not getting the uncut version, you shouldn't bother reading the book. I'm gonna be really brutal on this. I have never had a version of a book so much like that. Like if you get the uncut version, I don't even know. Like the first whole book of the extended version, there's books inside the book. It's like 400 pages, which is a full fucking book. That's got like all this character backstory. And I remember thinking, like, googling and figuring out, like, if you don't have this, the whole book would suck. It would just be meh. Like you have no depth to the characters of the uncut. So for starters, get that. Secondly, this book can be a slog at times. It's almost 1,200 pages. There's a lot of words. Like it's almost 500,000 words. So is it worth it to read? Yes, definitively. How much did I enjoy it? So we'll go over the pro and cons. So he writes phenomenal characters. He writes cool scenarios. He has beautiful description and described. Remember, there's a scene with a basic junkyard he almost did poetically. There's a really cool concept with a plague, and then this kind of good and evil battle between this 108-year-old lady and this creepy guy, the Dark Man. Everybody gets his dreams, kind of just a classic good and evil thing with some layers. So also, yeah, kind of the pros. Like that's good. The idea is good. The characters are phenomenal. Um, especially the before, like, because the uncut version gives you kind of before the plague's falling, and all that's phenomenal. The pacing's phenomenal. Everything. Well, the pacing's not phenomenal, so that's where we kind of get into the struggle. The last positive thing I'll say, there's really good pacing. There's really good. Oh god, I just fucked the bed. I'm gonna have to pause here for this review. No, we're not doing cuts. The, the pacing. I'm a vegetable. I like to take this time out. I just I just found out all five of my baby mamas are pregnant. I just got a notification, so I'm blown back. But also, they're not as cool as books. So I don't really care. So His pacing's really good at the beginning, especially in the uncut version where he's going into lore. You get the characters, there's cool stuff happening. It's all pretty fast paced. But then there's a part, especially halfway, about 700, 800, where it gets to be a little slog. There's a lot of tension build, but then kind of slows. It's like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, nothing's really happening. That being with the end, there's a little bit of a climatic, anticlimactic thing that I didn't really like. The ending wasn't bad. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. I just think there was some things I felt like almost the Dark Man was kind of underseen. He was like hyped and then just like some stuff, but I don't want to get into spoilers with that. So how they describe the villain, the world building, all that's phenomenal. It's juicy. The character development's amazing. Onto the major cons. Like I said, some pacing stuff, some struggles. Towards the end, it was definitely a slog. The big gripe, I don't think he writes like. It's weird. I think he can write a good woman character. He just doesn't want to sometimes. There's some of the women characters, at least some scenes of them, which I just didn't find them believable at all. Now I'm not Mr. Joe Woman Joe Vagina here. I'm not saying I speak for women, but there was just some scenes where it's like I don't know what that one test is, the Bechdel Binkel test of like does your character have a scene where she's talking with another character or something about something other than like a man or something, right? I'm a little rusty on what that is, but like I don't. His characters were past that, but they have some scenes where it's like, bro. Um, and I think it's kind of frustrating because I'll give a prime example. There's a character, a main character, Franny. Oh my God, Franny Goldsmith, and she's one of the main characters. And they kind of start out the apocalypse with like the uncut, what's going on, and she's clear headed. She seems a little opinionated, a little sassy. Honestly, vaguely reminds me of my mom. Definitely a little spunky, a little feisty. But she's like also not a pushover. She's not like a weak or like subservient, submissive woman. She's like kind of a normal human being. Well, then kind of there's later parts where it seems like she like writes this little diary, which is extremely girlish, and nothing you can't write a diary like everyone writes, but it's the way they were kind of make it sound made her seem a little giggly and girlish. Which to be fair, she is a young adult, but I just didn't. I felt like that was almost forced and almost like kind of like, hey, she is a girl, and I felt like she had this kind of like good character going, and then it ruined it like or permanently just a little bit. But it's just like I feel like he just did some stuff that was weird like that. I also feel like there's a couple of female characters that he always used like almost sexual props. I don't know how to describe it like with reproduction as far as like the future of the community and stuff like that. Again, I don't want to get heavy into spoilers. I just felt like he could have done a lot better on the women. There were very interesting women characters, but I think he was hard to be consistent. Like I gave prime examples, Frances or Franny Goldsmith, amazing. And for most of the book, she is amazing. But there's just a couple parts where it just feels like now it just seemed like it's just written from a man's perspective, but it just was very strongly almost seemed like here's this character, here's how she acts and things. Let's diverge from that for a little bit. So that's I know it sounds like I'm ranting, but that's a big gripe for me. I think the second biggest gripe, like I said, is probably just the pacing, just how some stuff got kind of sloggy, and I found myself almost skimming some pages because it was walls of text that was just like useless description that I just didn't care about. And at times it was really cool. At times it was extremely rewarding. And maybe I should just skim a couple of pages I did because like they were just describing stuff and it was just kind of the same shit. There's these slow travel arcs, which can be really good. And sometimes I enjoy it, but I just wasn't. I kind of wanted to get to the juice of this one. Last thing I said is the ending was a little iffy for me. I like kind of some stuff with it, but then I didn't really like. It was a little. It was like a reversal. I don't want to spoil. It did all right for me. Um, so kind of my final thoughts. This book I think is crucial to read if you really want to enjoy the Dark Tower series. It really introduced one of the main villains. I think this book is phenomenal as far as creativity, uniqueness, and his descriptive powers. And I think overall the characters are phenomenal. There's a special needs guy who has this whole gimmick. Love him. There's a deaf mute who ends up like losing an eye. It's awesome. There's this guy named Trash Can Man who just like burning shit. Right? There's just all these really unique characters. And that's why I really recommend the uncut version because not just for the overall cohesive enjoyment, but like I found myself most enjoying the book pages 1 through like 400 something. So basically, book 1, the uncut, the added juice, right? So the uncut version, what it adds, and then I found it kind of got a little high, then kind of almost dropped for 100 or 200 pages towards the middle game. But then when it hit kind of 800-900 again, and they kind of started picking up plot and characters started dying off, I found myself back to that peak enjoyment. So I just on that's why I really recommend the uncut version because like it not only does it do so much to help with the story, but I think it thoroughly is just well written, like on its own. Like it's also I can't get over 400 pages. It's like a whole ass book. So it's because sometimes like books will say, "Oh, book this inside the book," but it's like that's like 100 pages. What the fuck? I mean, because there's 100-page books, but like, come on, that's like a novel at best. But anyways, this book, long story short, I'll give my rating. I will give it. I'm gonna think an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10. It is good. I enjoyed it, but there were a couple weak points. And the parts I did enjoy were like again an 8 or 9 out of 10. It was like, oh my god, but it was definitely well written, definitely good. Um, it actually is, I think, technically the first Stephen King book I've read front to back. So yeah, I don't know what to base off. When I read enough Stephen King books, like 10, 15, 20, I'll do a tier list. I'm just doing a deep dive for him. Right up here, I got the Gunslinger. That'll be what I'm reading next and review next. It's a fraction of the size of this bad boy. This review dragged only longer than I wanted to, but I'm gonna try to post some more reviews. Just also passionate about. I'm assuming no one will ever see these, or just my friends. So